INTPs, hello. Uh, I wanted to talk today about certain realizations I had about TE, and because I think this realization about TE can reconcile my. It can make my interpretation and understanding of TE much more understanding, much more friendly. Uh, I like the quote, never attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance. And so I'm merely just I think a lot of people misunderstand TE, and I'd like to see what I have to think about that. So my recent realization is what TE is all about. Extroverted thinking. And extroverted thinking is all about thought out here in reality. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that if I say I want to have dinner, then to an extroverted thinker, that's not enough. That's not connected to reality yet. The extroverted thinker would say, okay, what time do you want to have dinner? Where? What do you want to eat? And how are we going to get there? Are we going to get there in the amount of time possible? Their thinking is all about how can we make what you thought into reality. That is their focus, and and I'd like to talk about how that is actually an amazing talent, an amazing superpower to have, because it it means that the person is always geared towards always geared towards turning thoughts into reality, and they're always thinking about exactly what it would take to get that done. So I say, oh, I want to lose this much weight. By what date? How are you gonna do it? And blah blah blah. And then I think to an extrovert thinker, like as the certainty of the realization goes up, they feel better and better about the plan. And I want to talk also about the flow state of an extrovert thinker. So they are looking out and they are making reality happen, right? And the flow state of an extrovert thinker is they go out and they plan, they lay it all out, they stack dependencies upon dependencies, and they have a plan out, for the next 3 months, and things are going according to plan, so that they can continue to extend out, and that's the flow chart. I mean, that's the flow state, and that's where there can be some frustration when working with someone like us, INTPs, where if they ask, they're laying out our part, and then they say, okay, how long is that going to take? And then I say, oh, it's going to get done when it gets done. And the extroverted thinker says, what are you talking about? What? And it's like throwing a wrench into their flow state. And I say, or if I say, oh, I know I said 2 weeks, it's going to take 5 weeks. Again, the extroverted thinker is not so much in flow in those conditions. So I can admire that. I can admire the definition of TE, extroverted thinking, being all about reality creation through thinking in the external world, using the resources you have, the time you have available, to make what you just thought and what you just said real. What is that? What is it going to take? And the frustration that extroverted thinkers have with people who don't meet the thought and don't meet the words is not so much about people. It is just that they're always thinking about how to make it real, and if that happens, then it's not real. What you just said is no longer real, and that can mess with the flow state. The far extension of this you've probably seen in your life, and I've seen, where for example, like a video game is scheduled for a certain date to be released for a certain date, and then it's postponed by a year. Postponed by a year, okay, maybe it's still real, right? Postponed again and again, And there's some video games that have been postponed 10 years. At this point, those video games are not real. So I can see the extroverted thinking perspective. I can understand it. They insist. The way that they think is that words and thoughts are real. And we want to maneuver our thoughts so that that is true. So I can admire that. Now, is it natural to me? No. And I'd like to talk about the situation with my coworker, where yesterday my coworker was discussing with me about other coworkers who were not. I mean, she's ESTJ and her coworkers are ESFP and INFP, so they have TE lower on the stack. And the differences in thinking were really frustrating her. So I talked about my definition of TE and how much I understood her, or how I think I understand her now, and she agreed. And then that day we agreed to execute on some projects that were going slower. And so I used the stuff I knew about videos and got what we needed to get done. So that prompted her to add me again today to get more work done. However, this time it was a very TE feeling situation. I was given 3 hours to get it done, and I was asked how long it was going to take to get it done. It was really hard for me to say because I didn't really know how to do it. And every 15 minutes there was a time check, like, oh, like how far are you now? How far are you now? And at one point she came and stood next to me to observe what I was doing. And I think these are all like TE tactics to push the deadline forward. However, the TE blind spot can be, and I've seen this, you can say the phrase quality over quantity. The issue with TE is so much focus is done on the realization and the progress that what you actually do can be overlooked. And so, garbage in, garbage out, you could just make a lot of stuff. You can meet the deadlines, but it's all bad. But anyways, that's not what I'm talking about. I just realized that that's a TE workflow, and the TE focus is on realization. I pushed through, and I was able to meet the deadline after adjusting and saying, one of the things won't be able to make it. I pushed through, but I saw the difference in approach. And I wanted to share that out so that I can see what realizations I can have here. The first thing I want to say, though, is there's nothing emotional here about it. I merely want to muse about it, and I also like to have the view that it was supposed to happen, and things are all going according to plan. But I wanted to share it so I could see if there are any realizations I had about it. My first thought is that this probably means that TE and TI their best way of working together is not close to each other. TI can be given the space to work on TI stuff, and the TE can check in a lot less frequently. But I think I can, as an INTP, I can appreciate TE a lot more after thinking through things like I'm sharing with you today. Let me think about whether there's anything else to see here. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing I want to share, which is I can see the TE blind spot, which is the quality of the work, the completeness of the work. TE is not so focused on it. As long as they can check it off the list and they can move on, they're fine. Which I really want to push back on. I think overactive TE is just as big a problem as overactive TI. Overactive TE equals things get done, but no one wants them. The quality's bad. Overactive TI means nothing gets done. So I'd like to think more about that. And what I just said there with overactive TE and TI has me think that might be the natural way of TE and TI thinkers working together. The TE people insist on reality, and the TI people insist on quality. And by working together and granting power when needed, they can maximize both as much as possible. But that does not mean working together. That means mutual respect and the willingness to speak up and insist you're right when you're right. But I can see the conflict, the contradiction. If TE is neglected, then things do not get done. Things do not become real. If TI is neglected, then whatever you make is flimsy and paper thin. So that's everything I wanted to say. Those are actually realizations at the end. But I wanted to lay that out. I guess I'll come back tomorrow and I'll tell you if I realize anything further. But just want to reiterate that everything's going according to plan. So see you.